Welcome to the Transatlantic Translations Group Fraud, Waste, and Abuse training session. This webinar is specifically for linguists who provide translations, interpretations, and other language services for our company. The purpose of this webinar is to provide all of the fraud, waste, and abuse information that you need in the form of a video without the need to enroll and take the assessment yourself. Let's begin. This training assists Medicare Part C and D plan sponsors' employees, governing body members, and their FDRs to satisfy their annual general compliance training requirements in the regulations and sub-regulatory guidance found here. Every year, billions of dollars are improperly spent because of the FWA. It affects everyone, including you. This training helps you detect, correct, and prevent FWA. You are part of the solution. Compliance is everyone's responsibility. As an individual who provides health or administrative services for Medicare enrollees, every action you take potentially affects Medicare enrollees, the Medicare program, or the Medicare Trust Fund. Certain training requirements apply to people involved in Medicare Part C and D. All employees of MAOs, PDPs, or sponsors must receive training about compliance with CMS program rules. You can send us an email for more information. In order to complete this course, you just have to finish watching and understanding the contents of this video and send an email to us as an attestation confirming you have watched and understood the training videos. This lesson outlines effective compliance programs. After completing this lesson, you should correctly recognize how a compliance program operates and recognize how a compliance program violation should be reported. The CMS requires sponsors to implement and maintain an effective compliance program for its Medicare plans. An effective compliance program must articulate and demonstrate an organization's commitment to legal and ethical conduct, provide guidance on how to handle compliance questions and concerns, provide guidance on how to identify and report compliance violations. An effective compliance program fosters a culture of compliance within an organization and at a minimum prevents, detects, and corrects non-compliance, is fully implemented and is tailored to an organization's unique operations and circumstances, has adequate resources, promotes the organization's standards of conduct, establishes clear lines of communications for reporting non-compliance. An effective compliance program is essential to prevent, detect, and correct Medicare non-compliance as well as FWA. It must, at a minimum, include the 7 core compliance program requirements. CMS requires an effective compliance program to include 7 core requirements. Number 1, written policies, procedures, and standards of conduct. Number 2, compliance officer, compliance committee, and high-level oversight. Number 3, effective training and education. Number 4, effective lines of communication. Number 5, well-publicized disciplinary standards. Number 6, effective system for routine monitoring, auditing, and identifying compliance risks. And lastly, number 7, procedures and system for prompt response to compliance issues. CMS expects all sponsors will apply their training requirements and effective lines of communications to their FDRs. Having effective lines of communication means employees of the sponsor and the sponsor's FDRs have several avenues to report compliance concerns. As part of the Medicare program, you must conduct yourself in an ethical and legal manner. It's about doing the right thing. Act fairly and honestly. Adhere to high ethical standards in all you do. Comply with all applicable laws, regulations, and CMS requirements. And lastly, report suspected violations. Standards of conduct state the organization's compliance expectations and their operational principles and values. Organizational standards of conduct vary. The organization should tailor the standards of conduct content to their individual organization's culture and business operations. You can ask us where to locate this. Reporting standards of conduct violations and suspected non-compliance is everyone's responsibility. An organization's standards of conduct and policies and procedures should identify this obligation and tell you how to report suspected noncompliance. Noncompliance is conduct that does not conform to the law, federal healthcare program requirements, or an organization's ethical and business policies. CMS identified the following Medicare Part C and D high-risk areas stated here. Now, what are the consequences of noncompliance? Now, failure to follow Medicare program requirements and CMS guidelines can lead to serious consequences, including contract termination, criminal penalties, exclusion from participation in all federal healthcare programs, civil monetary penalties. Additionally, your organization must have disciplinary standards of non-compliant behavior. Those who engage in non-compliant behavior may be subject to any of the following: mandatory training or retraining, disciplinary action, and lastly, termination. Now, non-compliance affects everybody. Without this, here's the risks that are involved: delayed services, denial of benefits, difficulty in providing or using providers of choice, other hurdles to care, also high insurance co-payments, higher premiums, lower star ratings, lower benefits for individuals and employers, and lower profits. Now, on this slide, you can see how to report potential non-compliance depending on what your role is. When you report suspected non-compliance in good faith, the sponsor can't retaliate against you. Each sponsor must offer reporting methods that are anonymous, confidential, and non-retaliatory. Non-compliance must be investigated immediately and corrected promptly. Internal monitoring should ensure no recurrence of the same non-compliance, ongoing CMS requirements compliance, efficient and effective internal controls, and protected enrollees. Internal monitoring activities include regular reviews, confirming ongoing compliance and taking effective corrective actions. Internal auditing is a formal review of compliance with a particular set of standards used as base measures. You can see from the diagram the cycle on how to prevent, detect, report, correct, and monitor and audit any non-compliance issues. To summarize, organizations must create and maintain compliance programs that, at a minimum, meet the 7 core requirements. An effective compliance program fosters a culture of compliance. To help ensure compliance, behave ethically and follow your organization's standards of conduct. Watch for common instances of non-compliance and report suspected non-compliance. Know the consequences of non-compliance and help correct any non-compliance with a corrective action plan that includes ongoing monitoring and auditing. Now that the lesson is complete, let's do a quick knowledge check. You discovered an unattended email address or fax machine in your office receiving beneficiary appeals requests. You suspect no one is processing the appeals. Now what should you do? A. Contact law enforcement. B. Nothing. C. Contact your compliance department. D. Wait to confirm someone is processing the appeals before taking further action. Or letter E. Contact your supervisor. The answer is C. Contact your compliance department. Next, a sales agent employed by the sponsor's FDR submitted an application for processing and requested 2 things. 1. To backdate the enrollment date by 1 month, and 2. To waive all monthly premiums for the beneficiary. What should you do? A. Refuse to change the date or waive the premiums but decide not to mention the request to a supervisor or the compliance department. B. Make the requested changes because the sales agent determines the beneficiary's start date and monthly premiums. C. Tell the sales agent you will take care of it, but then process the application properly without the requested revisions. You will not file a report because you don't want the sales agent to retaliate against you. Letter D. Process the application properly without the requested revisions. Inform your supervisor and the compliance officer about the sales agent's request. Lastly, E. Contact law enforcement and the Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services to report the sales agent's behavior. The answer is D. Process the application properly without the requested revisions and inform your supervisor and the compliance officer about the sales agent's request. You work for a sponsor. Last month, while reviewing a CMS monthly report, you identified multiple individuals not enrolled in the plan but for whom the sponsor is paid. You spoke to your supervisor who said don't worry about it. This month, you identified the same enrollees on the report again. Now what should you do? A. Decide not to worry about it as your supervisor instructed. You notified your supervisor last month and now it's his responsibility. Letter B. Although you know about the sponsor's non-retaliation policy, you are still nervous about reporting. To be safe, you submit a report through your compliance department's anonymous tip line to avoid identification. C. Wait until the next month to see if the same enrollees appear on the report again, figuring it may take a few months for CMS to reconcile its records. If they are, then you will say something to your supervisor again. Letter D. Contact law enforcement and CMS to report the discrepancy. Letter E. Ask your supervisor about the discrepancy again. The answer is letter B. You are performing a regular inventory of the controlled substances in the pharmacy. You discover a minor inventory discrepancy. What should you do? Letter A. Call local law enforcement. B. Perform another review. C. Contact your compliance department. D. Discuss your concerns with your supervisor. E. Follow your pharmacy's procedures. The answer is E. Follow your pharmacy's procedures. Now that you've learned about the compliance program, let's go ahead and proceed with the post-assessment. Let's start with our brief post-assessment. You can answer the questions with me. Question 1. Compliance is the responsibility of the compliance officer, compliance committee, and upper management only. Answer is false. Ways to report a compliance issue include A. Telephone hotlines, B. Report on the sponsor's website, C. In-person reporting to the compliance department or supervisor, letter D. All of the above. Answer is D. All of the above. What is the policy of non-retaliation? A. Allows the sponsor to discipline employees who violate the code of conduct. B. Prohibits management and supervisor from harassing employees for misconduct. Letter C. Protects employees who, in good faith, report suspected non-compliance. Letter D. Prevents fights between employees. Answer is C. Protects employees who, in good faith, report suspected non-compliance. These are examples of issues that can be reported to a compliance department: suspected FWA, potential health privacy violation, and unethical behavior, employee misconduct. True or false? Answer is true. Once a corrective action plan begins addressing non-compliance or FWA committed by a sponsor's employee or FDR employee, ongoing monitoring of the corrective actions is not necessary. True or false? The answer is false. Medicare Part C and D plan sponsors are not required to have a compliance program. The answer is false. At a minimum, an effective compliance program includes 4 core requirements. True or false? Answer is false. Standards of conduct are the same for every Medicare Part C and D sponsor. True or false? False. Correcting non-compliance, protecting enrollees avoids recurrence of the same non-compliance and promotes efficiency. B. Ensure bonuses for all employees. C. Both A and B. The answer is A. What are some of the consequences for non-compliance, fraudulent, or unethical behavior? A. Disciplinary action. B. Termination of employment. C. Exclusion from participating in all federal healthcare programs. D. All of the above. The answer is D. All of the above. Complete. Thank you for attending the Transatlantic Translations Group Fraud, Waste, and Abuse training session. Have a good day.